The reality is that in order for someone to close a deal, like you're going to lose more than you win, like 80% of the time, and you need to stand up. And there will be days where you think that the world is falling apart and you're not closing anything, and you're seeing your dashboard and you're at 0%, and you're like, how am I going to get there? So you need to believe that you can get there. So I look for that.
Today's successful revenue leaders once started their careers just like you and I. They faced the challenges that their careers brought to them, they rose to the occasion, and became the leaders that we admire today. Join me as we explore the skills and stories that make a great leader with a pinch of vulnerability. Hello and welcome to Sales Therapy. I'm your host, Alper Yurder. Grab a chair. This is your exclusive invitation to the therapy room, as leaders are going to be sharing their career-defining moments, their secret tips and tricks in their arsenal towards success. And I promise we'll always end on a positive note. So today, this will be a long intro. Bear with me, guys. In the therapy chair, we have Javier Ortega Estrada, Javi, who is an old friend of mine, and he's a highly sought B2B sales exec, who's currently the CRO of Veriff, the scale-up we all know, with over $100 million in investment and the preferred ID verification service provider worldwide. How he's an ex-consultant, a revenue leader, and a fellow alumni of mine from Rotterdam School of Management. Despite his still very young age, I would say, he has been running from success to success, having grown Hopin, the online event platform, from $6 to $100 million in revenue. And he wore multiple revenue leadership hats at Dropbox in Europe and US, all the while keeping all of his hair on top of his head, which I notice is very nice and shiny. So we'll talk about how he didn't lose it in all these, years. We'll talk about his success, the joy, the pain, and the journey. Welcome to Sales Therapy, Javi. That was mouthful, but how are you feeling today?
Thank you, Alper. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm feeling great. I'm very energized to be here with you for two reasons. One, because you're an old friend of mine, but two, also because I'm a big fan of your podcast and therapy in general. So happy to be here.
How wonderful to hear. You were supposed to be one of my first 5 guests to see my worst rookie days, but in 2 months, I feel like I've become a pro. I'm kidding. But I'm so glad to have you here, and it's going to be a great chat. Was that intro enough? Did I miss anything major?
That was more than enough. I think you were
more
too
than
nice
enough.
To me. Yeah. And I don't feel that young anymore. But we're trying to keep ourselves fresh a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And you've been in the US for so long after moving to Europe, but currently you go back and forth between Madrid and Texas. Is that it?
Yeah, that's correct. I still call Austin home because I spend more than 6 months a year here. But I have a global team, and I find very, very positive to be able to be in the same time zone part of the year. Yeah. So right now I'm splitting my time.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So from those very young, fresh ages, what were we, 21, 20, whatever, at Rotterdam, where we met during our exchange times, wild times. You've kept it wild, though, for quite some time, haven't you? Before now you settle and be the CRO, the commercial leader that you are.
Yeah, no, I definitely had fun when I was younger. I still try to have fun, different type of fun. But yeah, I when we finished college, I went right into consulting, and I did 7 years in consulting. And that was the beginning of my career.
Excellent. We'll go into all of that. And you had a little run at being a founder as well, if I'm not remembering wrong. Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
It was unfortunately not a success story, but it was a lot of learnings.
Excellent. We'll talk about all of that. So, any good therapy starts with childhood and growing up. I love understanding how the growing up experience shapes the people that we are today and our professional persona. So, can you tell us about the younger Javi a little bit? Maybe 12 to, university?
Yeah, so I've always been a pretty active guy and very... How will I say? Naughty is not the word. Curious.
Oh, I bet you were naughty, Javi. I bet you were naughty.
No, I was always curious. I was a curious guy. I grew up doing a lot of sports competitively. I think that my parents, even though they wanted me to do sports, they also kept me straight into my academic trajectory. And until I was 17 years old, I wanted to be an officer in the army, partially because of my upbringing. I come from a very long history of military officers in my family. And at some point, my dad told me that I would be very bad at it. He told me, don't go into that. You will question everything, and you're not meant to be in the army, so do something else. And that's when I decided to go into economics.
Your dad kind of deviated you from that route because it was too obedience or too much discipline? What is it?
I was thinking I wouldn't strive into that. I think like a good parent knows the strengths and the weaknesses of their child. At the
Hmm.
end of the day, they spend a lot of time with us growing up. And he knew that, and knowing that environment well, he knew that I wouldn't be fully fulfilled there. And he recommended me to seek other avenues. And I'm very grateful for that.
And in terms of their careers, were they also like execs or entrepreneurs or what were they?
No, so my dad is a general in the Spanish army, and
Oh,
my
he was a
mom
general
is
too. Okay.
yeah, and my mom is an interior designer. So
Oh.
very different backgrounds. Even though my mom is an interior designer, but I don't think she worked since I was born. Yeah, I don't come from a family of tech people or entrepreneurs.
Okay. And you grew up in Madrid, is that it?
I grew up in Madrid, born and raised until I went to college. I went to college for my first 3 years of college in Madrid to Universidad Carlos III to do economics. And then is when we met. After those 3 years, I went to
Yeah.
Rotterdam and I spent over a year there. And then I came back to Madrid.
Yeah. Madrid is probably after Athens my favorite town in Europe. It has this wonderful air, which is dry and warm, no humidity in summer. I loved spending Junes in Madrid. Do you agree with any of
June
that?
is bearable. June is bearable. If you go in August, you might
Yeah.
feel a little bit different
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
humidity
yeah.
or not. But yeah, Madrid is lovely. That's what I still consider to be my home, and it's a place where I want to go back at some point.
So coming to the years of starting career, you already alluded to that. You went back to Madrid. Can you tell us a little bit like how things evolved for you, like consulting, founder,
Uh,
exec?
I'll tell you the whole story. I'll tell you the whole
Tell
story.
me.
So I went back to Madrid and I had no idea what I wanted to do during my last year of university. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't know. And then I thought, okay, you go to these career fairs and you talk to banks and you talk to consulting firms. And in my mind, I'm doing economics and business. I thought, okay, either I go to banking or I go to consulting. That's the path that back in the day was expected for me to follow. And I was like, okay, banking seems to pay better, and that was a factor. But then I thought like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know a lot of things, and I'm curious. So I went into consulting not because I wanted to be a consultant, but because I wanted to learn about different industries, and I wanted to be exposed to different type of projects and different bosses. So I went into PwC to do management consulting, very focused on process improvement as well as post-merger integrations. And it was a time we were in the middle of a recession. It's in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
and like a lot of companies were cutting costs, and it was a time where for consultants there was a lot of gnarly work.
It's so funny. At the time we started our careers, the cool things were investment banker and then strategy consultant. And I guess I wonder what it is now. You probably recruit a lot more than me, but I guess it's, startups, being an entrepreneur, that journey is still
Yeah,
quite
Alper,
interesting.
I think people want to follow your steps. They want to be founders. They want to have their own companies, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what the top percentage of classmates are probably pursuing.
Yeah.
I think tech changed the way people look at the workplace. And I do think that more traditional industries had to catch up in these past few years to offer a similar work environment than the one that tech companies offer.
Yeah.
I remember my first paycheck in PwC. I had a partner, and he told me like, "Javi, with this paycheck, you need to spend it all in one suit and two shirts, and you need to spend all your money on that. You need a good suit and like whatever." Now for me, it's just like I only wear a suit when I have to go to a wedding, and a tie. I don't know. I don't even know if I would wear a tie. Depends on the wedding. But yeah, I think the world has changed, and in my opinion, for the better.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think COVID played into that. And I think COVID has been quite influential in your career too. We'll talk about that too. But I'm wondering what were some of your career defining moments, some highlights as well as some lowlights where you said maybe I have to change or whatever.
So for me, one of the most defining moments is when I decided to apply to Dropbox. Being
Hmm.
in consulting, I was based in Spain, but all my projects were in South America. I think at the time, it was very easy to export talent from Europe to Spanish-speaking Latin
Yeah.
America. Similarities in culture, language, as well as a little bit of the financial system. So I was 1 year. I remember. I will never forget this. I spent 310 nights outside in a hotel room, like in a. And at that time, I thought, why am I paying rent? It doesn't make any sense.
We all been there,
Also,
done that.
yeah, I also thought like I go into all these places and I compare consulting with going to the movies a little bit. You go to the movie at the beginning, it's slow, you don't know what's going on. And being a consultant, for me, it means that when the movie's getting interesting and it's starting to, the plot starts to develop, they pull you out of the movie theater and they put you in the
Ah,
next room to watch a new movie. And I was like, I want to see the end of the movie. I want to see if they get married or not. I want to see what happens here. So at the time, I decided then to try to move into tech after having had my own company for a year and a half. That was not successful, but it was a great learning in the tech space. I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to apply to Dropbox. It's a company that I know. And I use it when I was in Colombia at the time. When I'm in Colombia and my peers, my colleagues are in Madrid, we exchange files through Dropbox. It's a great company. I'm
mm.
going to apply. I didn't know anyone there. I applied and I happened to get the job. A job that I didn't even know what it was. I applied for a role that was sales and operations, very broad. I think that's probably the most defining moment in my career. The time I decided to embrace the unknown and take a risk and go to what at the time was a small company. That
Yeah.
was a Series B company. I decided to move to my life to a different country. That would be one.
That jump from consulting to the first job is always very, defining for a lot of people. Also, it's good that they took you because a lot of people try to make that jump, especially to like cool, sexy startup like Dropbox, and they just get rejected. Did you have any rejections, by the way, in that period from other places?
I have so many reactions. I think
Okay,
Google,
good. That makes you human.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I think Google rejected me like 20 times or something. Then they
good.
came, yeah, a few years later they came back like and they were interested, but
Mm,
then I was not interested. But I tried to apply to Google, to Facebook, to all the big ones. Dropbox at the time was tiny. As I mentioned, it was a Series B company that was only based in San Francisco. It was not the enterprise company it is today.
yeah.
But they took a chance on me. They did took a chance of me, partially because of my stint as an entrepreneur, and also because usually consultants, the good thing is that you're supposed to learn fast and you're used to working hard. So they said, okay, this guy has some potential, so let's bring him on board.
I love that.
And I'm
And you
very
still had the
grateful.
same amount of hair back then. It's incredible. I have two questions for you about that time.
Sure.
One is how was the experience in Colombia, Dominican Republic, all those, exciting places for a lot of people, which we might not
Yeah.
have been in Europe?
So the experience there was great for multiple reasons. One, I got exposed to a different culture that felt somehow similar to
Mm-hmm.
the one I
Of
had in
course.
Spain. So we share a language, we share a lot of common history. So it was easy, but it was different enough for me to be a push outside of my comfort zone. And also looking forward, something that gave me down the line is experience to emerging markets, to markets that are not as
Yeah.
consolidated as ones where I've grown up, and then they define also my trajectory in my career. I started working with Southern Europe, then I took emerging markets at Dropbox, and that helped me grow a lot. So all in all, the experience was great. I have to
Okay.
confess that in Dominican Republic, it was hard sometimes when I was going to work, wearing my suit, going to the bank, and then you will see people with swimsuits in their honeymoons or in some kind of like fun trips, and you're like, oh my god, I have to go to work, and everyone else here is on holidays.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure after that you put the suit off and you jump to the ocean, so I'm not gonna be too sad for you there. How was the quick stint at being a founder that 1 year?
It was good. It was good. It was fulfilling. We raised some money. So what we were trying to do was, and you have to put yourself back in time.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about pre LinkedIn having content. We realized through a friend of ours, it was an architect, that for creative professionals, it was very hard to showcase their talent and they had to exchange physical files. And we thought there was a better way to do that. So we created an online portfolio for creative professionals.
Mm.
Now, we made all the mistakes that you can make in the world. None of us was technical. We outsourced all our development to, I think it was India at the time. And then we tried to launch in a market that was in a huge recession. It was Spain at a time where young unemployment was in the 50s,
Oh
50%
God.
plus. So no one cared about creative professionals. Like it was not top of mind for anybody. So wrong time, wrong market, also wrong team, but it was thrilling. I had a lot of
Okay,
fun.
I love that.
And
Um,
I think it's one of the experiences where I learned the most. I often say that you learn almost as much from failing, or even not more from failing than from winning.
yeah, and I guess you learn to fail fast too. I should remember to ask you about the executive experience with that. Last question on that section is, I made the switch from consulting to sales because this is going to be ridiculous, but I just wanted to be with people, talking to people, understanding their pains. I enjoy that. I didn't enjoy the endless Excel, the due diligences in a row, sitting in an office. So I wanted to be out there and go out and speak to people and sell something, like the thrill, the adrenaline of it. But at that time, I was being very much, how should I say, what's the right word? A lot of people in my very close circle, they were like, what the hell? You're a consultant. That's a smart job. You're going to go and be a sales guy? Like, that's not, nobody perceived in my immediate circle that as a worthy job for me to do, which is so sad. And I think it still persists a little bit today.
I'll say that's very European.
Hmm.
I chuckle a little bit with that because when I look at a lot of account executives in Europe, they call themselves business development, they call themselves partnerships, they don't call themselves sales. And I think that in at least in my country, in Spain, still a salesman is seen as someone that is going to try to convince you to do something that you don't want
Push.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not what a salesman is. In my opinion, salesman is a consultant really. And when you talk about that, like for me, going from consulting to sales was a very natural step because as a consultant, you're selling a service and you need to do a good job to make sure that you are selling another project afterwards. But when you're engaged with customers, with clients, you're always selling.
Yeah.
And you sell your firm, you sell
Yeah.
your work. Yeah.
I used
But
to say,
yeah,
what's a McKinsey partner but a glorified salesman? Like, at the end of the day, they're selling projects too. That's the trajectory.
the more senior you are in consulting, the more you sell.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Okay. So the progress, Dropbox, like let's hear all those steps, the exciting career journey in summary, and then we'll delve into bits of it.
Yeah, I'll be brief because it was like 7 years and something there, and I don't want to bore you. But I started to, and I moved to Ireland to open. Well, I first went to San Francisco for a few months just to learn the ins and outs of the company. Then went to Dublin where we established our headquarters, and I was one of the first hires in Europe. And our role was to figure out EMEA, very rudimentary sales process
Mm-hmm.
with a very good traction in the consumer space, but with not traction on the B2B side yet. We were tasked with expanding the business footprint. I started with Southern Europe, Spain and Italy first, because of language reasons. Then with time, I grew into a management role and I took France and emerging markets. So Southern Europe and emerging markets, being emerging markets, the Middle East, Israel, as well as CEE. And with time that it expanded into taking it like all business development in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And it took more teams. And at some point, I got the opportunity to move to the US
Mm-hmm.
to lead our New York office as well as our enterprise teams in the US. And I made the jump and I moved to New York.
Yeah.
In between that first job and moving to New York, there were 5 years of growth, of up and downs, of changes in the market. There were definitely quarters that were fantastic, quarters that were hard, bosses that were phenomenal, bosses that were less good, and a lot of learnings in between.
Yeah. I guess the natural question is top learning, and I like to ask it with this view. Like if someone is in your shoes right now going through a similar, career journey, what would you recommend them to do and don't?
Yeah, so I recommend always two things. One is to play the long game. It's as a seller, sometimes it's easy to be short-sighted and to
Mm-hmm.
just try to optimize for the current quarter. I think those things always catch up. You need to hit your quarter for sure, but life cycles of customers are long, so you need to make sure that you are making them successful in the long run. So that's one, and also the second one is like work hard. And I know it's not very accepted today to say that you need to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
People always talk about like, I don't know, there's all these trends about like 4-day weekdays and work-life balance and whatnot. But the reality is that people are working hard around you.
Yeah.
And I think that hard work trumps talent 80% of the time. And if you put the work, eventually you will get the reward.
Yeah. And I think it's sometimes fair, especially when you say in that environment, you sign up to it. This is an organization that works at this pace, so you're expected to do it. So if it's not a match, it's not a match. Bye bye, and we'll be friends, and you'll find something else, and you thrive, right? I think that way, at least.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think that that's something that I did differently. I was often the first one in the office, or if not always, and I was leaving late. I was trying to figure out how to learn, how to engage with more customers, how to follow up accurately, and eventually how to hit my number consistently. And then when I took a team, how to make sure that all my team was also successful.
Mhm. How did you? That's a very difficult thing, like knowing what to do and coaching others to do that. Do you have any nuggets of advice? Also for me, I'll take it. How do you
Yeah.
manage to coach people on that?
So I think the biggest change when you become a manager is realizing that your success is not yours, and that you're only as successful as your team.
Hmm.
And I think that this is what a lot of sellers that go into management get wrong. Sellers are very used to the thrill, to the recognition, to being the one in the screen with a big win and in the dashboard, the number one. Once you become a manager, you become invisible, and you need to be fine with it.
Ooh,
Uh, you need to be fine with it, and you need to make sure that your people are the ones that are on the screen. I think that once you become a manager, you need to stop seeking merit and making sure that the merit is distributed.
that is so powerful. I'm like, okay, let me digest that. Once you become a manager, you stop seeking merit. Did you really stop seeking that recognition that, hurrah, Javi, you are the best, that kind of thing?
Yeah, for me, the merit at the time was like then how many people I can qualify for President's Club, how many people can get on top of the board, and by association, eventually, you might also even qualify for the President's
Yeah,
Club, but it's not the hobby show anymore.
yeah.
It's your teams.
Yeah, I think I've seen that time and time again. Once it stops becoming hobby show, some people just don't want that. And I think a senior IC role is really great for those. Yeah,
Yeah,
that could
yeah.
that could be my
That's
retirement
why
role.
you never know. You never know. I actually think that some of the best professionals that I work with are people that decided not to pursue a career in management, and they become really masters of their craft. They can achieve things that only a few can,
Yeah,
because like what does it say, like 3,000 hours or 10,000 hours? Well, they do more than 10,000 hours. So
yeah, absolutely. The massive growth for you has not been once, twice. Now it's happening again, and we'll come to today. But the Hopin story is probably very interesting. I was watching you from afar in the middle of COVID. You shifted gears. How was that experience for you? From what, 6 million to 100 million? How many people was that in terms of recruitment effort?
too many, too many people,
Okay,
and
tell
that's
me,
that's
tell me all of that.
that's probably my biggest learning, right? Like
Hmm.
learn when to scale, how to scale, and don't overhire. Hopin was a very interesting story that I wouldn't change for anything in my career. It was wild. We came at a time where the world really needed us. If you remember, and I think everyone that
Yep.
is listening will remember, everyone was back in their homes. You couldn't communicate with people, and we were craving that social aspect because we're social creatures. Some are more social than others, but at the end of the day, we all seek interaction. Hopin came at a perfect time. We're feeling a very big need in society at a time that was very hard. So the company grew a lot in the customer base. Obviously, with customers is also revenue, and we scaled the team thinking that that trajectory was never going to change. We truly believe that we had found product market fit beyond the pandemic, and that the events industry was going to shift to a mostly virtual world.
Yep.
The reality is that the events industry is more than events. It's food and beverage, it's traveling, it's lodging, it's like entertainment. So it's very difficult to go against something that powerful. And after some time, there was a correction in the market and we had to scale down. But the company is still around, is succeeding in
Yep.
different, they're pursuing different avenues, more towards streaming and community. And it was a great ride.
So in that first year of like that massive, ridiculous growth, I mean, I'll definitely host someone from Zoom to hear their story too. But what did it feel like? How was the adrenaline?
So it felt that it was never enough. People think that when you
Oh,
are in one of these rides, you are always like smiling and laughing. It was the most stressful time in my career because we had to optimize for speed. And it was like literally like building the rocket while you were riding it.
mm-hmm.
We had to
Classic.
build not only the teams, but also the processes, the infrastructure, the systems to support. a growth of that magnitude in such a short period of time. I think that very few companies have grown that fast, and it gave me a lot of perspective on how to optimize for speed, how to hire fast, how to scale fast, and yeah, how to pivot, because we have to make multiple corrections all the time.
And throughout that, if you take that 10-year period, were there any emerging traits where you felt like, okay, when I'm in this pattern, I'm my happiest, and when I'm in this pattern, I'm not enjoying life that much?
Yeah, no, for me it's very easy. As soon as I stop learning and I start getting bored, then I start getting itchy and I want to do something else. So one of the reasons people ask me often, like, Javi, why did you leave Dropbox? You had it so good. Like, you had a big team, big P&L, great responsibility, publicly traded company, good work-life balance. And the reality is that I left because the company was mostly optimizing at the time.
Yeah.
And I left consulting because I didn't want to optimize. And this is what consultants do a lot, right? You come into a place, you look at improvements, and you find a few percentages here and there of efficiency. I get excited about triple-digit growth. I get excited about figuring out new growth avenues or new go-to-market motions. And when I start seeing that things are figured out, then I know that it's my time to maybe seek for something else.
Okay, I love that. So I guess then after that decade, you kind of mature as a leader, and your new employer, the new founder, or whoever is bringing you in to solve a problem, they know what this guy is good for, hopefully. So let's come to that a little bit with that intro. Coming to today, let's talk about some of the current issues you tackle, because you're building and scaling the global go-to-market team, the infrastructure to support the growth, all of that. What do you know about yourself that you are really good at?
So I think that the number one thing that I've learned to do well is hiring. And I think that that's probably the most important thing in an
Most.
executive or in a people manager. Like, I like to surround myself with people that are better than me, people that are smarter than me, and people that have deeper knowledge in a particular area. I think that that's probably 90% of my success is the people I surround myself with. And I've been very lucky with that. And I've built a good network of people that have trusted me over the years, that have come to different adventures with me together. And I think that they are 99% of the success.
I mean, hiring is huge for every stage, and I think definitely, especially for scale up, that's the most important. Share with us some wisdom and some major fuck up about hiring you did, and I'll share one too.
I have so many, Alper. I would start with the success and with what I look
Yes.
when I hire. When I look for someone in an IC role, I don't necessarily look for experience. Experience is a nice to have. It's not a must. For me, the most important thing are certain traits that I always try to prove on. Curiosity. I talked to you at the beginning when you told me will you describe the Javi of the past? I was a very curious boy, and I think I've continued being curious over time. I think that in any job, if you're curious, you're going to be more successful. But especially in sales, if you're curious to learn about your product, about your customers, about the problems that you're solving for, you're going to trust you more and you're going to work harder. So curiosity is one. The second one is resilience. I think being resilient in our line of work, it's very important.
It's also such an overused word that people don't know what it is, I think.
I use it like grit or stamina, the ability to overcome a challenge and stand up and raise up after you are put down. That for me, that's someone
bounce back.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Perseverance towards a goal. There are many definitions, but I look for that on anyone working in go-to-market, because the reality is that in order for someone to close a deal, like, you're going to lose more than you win. Like 80% of the time, and you need to stand up. And there will be days where you think that the world is falling apart and you're not closing anything, and you're seeing your dashboard and you're at 0%, and you're like, how am I going to get there? So you need to believe that you can get there. So I look for that. So curiosity, resilience, and then I also look for people with no ego, because I think that ego is how people get complacent and stop learning. So people that have a growth mindset, for me, it's something very important.
Oh, wow. On that last note, the moment you explain it as complacent and not learn, isn't that the typical? And I've been that guy for sure. Like, I know it all. I've been here 1 year. I'm the only one not fired. I know it. Like, no, RevOps, don't tell me the new thing. Sales leader, don't tell me the new thing. I know my way. I'm going to close it. I don't know. It definitely strikes a note with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and major mistakes hiring. I can share some of the traits that have led me to make bad
Yep.
hires. It hasn't been about bad people. I like to think that everyone is most people are very good people, and no one wants to go to a role to fail.
Yep.
When someone takes a job, you need to assume that everyone is going to try to do their best. But I think it's very important to understand what is the stage of your company and what is the profile of the person that you are hiring. I
Mhm.
think that bringing someone that is used to very big support organizations into a Series A company could be very challenging. In the same way, bringing someone that has only worked in a Series A company to a publicly traded company can be too big of a jump, especially if they don't have that growth mindset that we talked before. So I think that my biggest mistakes have not been about the people; it's been about bringing potentially the right people to the wrong stage or
Mhm.
of the company.
Mhm. Okay. And the one thing that I've learned, especially I've been hiring for quite a long time too, but I guess being a founder has taught me things. It's so funny how as an old dog you learn new things, and it's crazy. It's endless. And I think with me the struggle is always fire fast. I mean, that's it. I struggle with that. And then it gets to a bit of a friction, and I think in a scale up you don't have the luxury. I don't know, what do you think?
I think firing is the thing that no one enjoys doing, but
Yeah.
at some point it's part of a people manager's job. When I hear firing fast, I cringe a little bit because I think that
Yeah.
yes, if you made the wrong hire, you need to correct it. But there is also something about making sure that the person has a chance, right? And I will distinguish two different types of reasons that can lead to a termination. One is a skill issue, and the other one is a will issue. If you have a skill issue, I will invest my time on making
Yep.
you successful as long as you're willing to put the work. Now, in sales, we don't have the luxury of making that time forever, but you need to give the time. But if someone doesn't have the attitude and that someone
Yeah.
doesn't have the doesn't put the work, then is when you need to be quick because if they're not betting for their career, you shouldn't bet for their own careers.
That I mean, 200%, and all the especially VP above, everybody tells me the same things. I think for me, it becomes a bit of a personal thing. I hate to admit to myself that I brought the person who didn't have that determination from the beginning, and I made a misjudgment. I think that's my personal struggle with that. So, coming to today, if you don't mind, what are
Sure.
some of the things you are solving? And actually, this is the bit where I love to learn, like what's the latest and greatest from leaders? What are they solving? Are they finding new and innovative ways to solve an old problem? Any of that comes to mind? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I love what we're doing right now. I love what I'm doing. I love the mission of my company to make the internet a safer place, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the explosion of online transactions have led to a lot of fraud and to a lot of fraudster to
Oh.
thrive. You can hide behind this wonderful thing that is the internet. But I'm very happy with what we're solving for as a company. But now, more at an individual level, I think that everyone in revenue is struggling a little bit with longer sales cycles. I think we all are struggling with prospecting. People are saturated with the old prospecting techniques. So top of the funnel is a challenge. And I think we need to, more than ever, get personal. I used to have a sales coach, Ryan in Ireland, that Ryan O'Reilly, that used to say that people buy from people. And that's one of the most real things that I ever heard. Like people buy from people. So you need to be personable. You need to learn about your customers. You need to get closer. When you're prospecting, you need to be personal as well. Like I'm not going to ask you how many emails you receive a week because probably the numbers goes triple digit. And the reality is that
Everybody
we all
gets
are
cringed
saturated.
about my inbox.
So yeah, it's about like getting personal and doing your research. I think that that's the solution to an old problem that it's always been the solution, but now more than ever. And then
Hmm.
for deal cycles, longer deal cycles, I think that it's getting closer to your customers, understanding their pain, understanding what they are solving for, and making it about the customer, not about yourself. I think
Hmm.
that a very common mistake is selling features,
Yeah.
and that's something that we all have done. If there is any seller listening here that tells me that they never sold on features, I will call it bullshit.
Yeah.
Um, you learn with time, and you realize that selling on value is the best way to go. But now more than ever, you need to realize and remember that people are only going to buy if they see a clear return of investment.
Hmm. And I think both points allude to why we're building Flowline in a way, which leads beautifully to that. Standing out is impossible, longer sales cycles, more complex deals, more stakeholders, etc., etc. and combined to that the macroeconomic environment, everybody wants to do less with more with less.
Yeah.
And also the buyer now has the power. They buy in their way, it's not linear, etc. So I'm curious, like, do you take any specific initiatives to improve those things, like improve the long sales cycle, improve win rates, improve the buyer experience? Can you name a few things that you are trying to do to implement to combat those things?
I can, and I'm going to oversimplify um, because we could spend the next 3 hours talking about this. Um,
Let's.
but
I'm kidding.
I think everything starts early in the process.
Hmm.
The qualification. It's like you told me before that as important as hiring fast is firing fast. I think as important as qualifying in is qualifying out when it relates to sales. And I think that making a very solid discovery early on leads to shortened sales cycles, leads to less ghosting or inactivity in accounts, more of an understanding of what's going on. That it's eventually what fails in 80% of the deals. Like
Yeah.
you as a seller don't have perfect information. And that's a problem. If you had perfect information, your forecast will always be perfect. But unfortunately, it's an imperfect game here. So making sure that in the early discoveries, you're earning the right to ask the questions, and you are capturing very well why are you talking to your prospect and what is the business need that you're solving, leads to shorter sales cycles. Also, creating urgency and making it very tied to ROI and bringing on finance buyers early on. Companies have different finance thresholds now than they used to have in 2021. For example, in my company, pretty much any PO goes through my CFO. Great guy. But
Good.
when I bring something to him, he's going to tell me, okay, Javi, you're spending this much. How much are you bringing in return? And you should expect that the same questions are being asked to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Is he your best friend, the CFO?
He's one of my best friends for sure.
Hey, okay, good.
You're listening to me. Yes, I need more headcount.
I love that. And I stand by everything that you just explained. As a leader, as a seasoned leader, what are the signals you look for to say, okay, this deal might close or will close, and this one don't spend any time? What do you look for? What are your secret flavors you want in a deal?
So, Amber, I'm a funny one because I like to get into the systems and I like to listen to calls
Good.
and I like to go with my sellers to sell if I can be of help. I always say that in go to market or in any revenue function, the moment you stop getting in front of customers, you become useless, and I don't want to become useless. So everybody sells in my work. Now, what I look for in deals, it's an understanding of what is the pain that we're solving for, what is the ROI, and also who are we talking to is very important. Understanding we have the right people on board. So if I'm dissecting a deal, I poke for holes in the authority or in the use case that we're solving for the most, as well as the return of investment. But like there are very clear signs, right? When you look at engagement with a customer, like we use one of these revenue intelligence platforms that tells
Mm,
you how many touch points you have, what is the
mm,
change of files back and forth, what is the frequency, what is the tone. Nowadays, there is a lot of technologies that can help you understand what is the temperature of a prospect. But at the end of the
mm.
day, I trust my sellers, and I think that no one knows the deal as good as they do. So I will ask them to commit or not commit a deal.
Hmm. Yeah, those signals definitely. I mean, it's always been a huge part of what I wanted to solve, and that's what we
Yeah.
try to do with Flola. Do you have any interest or insight into our space buyer enablement, digital sales rooms, mutual action plans? Do you have any comments on it, any projections? And feel free to say no or yes or whatever you want.
Yes, I actually do. I actually
Okay,
do.
good.
Yes, I actually do. And this is something that unfortunately I don't see enough. I don't see mutual action plans. I don't see closing plans share with customers often. And I think there is a need for a better way to do that. Seamless, something that doesn't feel forced, something
Yeah.
that can be collaborative, dynamic. And I like what you guys are doing. So exactly in that line of work, I think there is an opportunity for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's mostly driven by the buyer, really. Like when I started, I was like, as a seller, it was a hell to close a $5 million deal with 50 stakeholders over 6 months. Then
Yeah.
I stepped into the buyer's shoes and I realized it's even worse to try to buy
Yes.
and seek the information, chase the seller, like create. You even in the buyer organization, you think somebody is your champion or an ally, not the seller I'm talking about. I'm talking in the buyer
Yeah,
organization. And then you realize they're not, and they have another agenda. So all of those complexities we try to somehow,
I love
improve.
that. I love
All
that
right.
because in sales organizations, everyone talks about the selling cycle.
Oh
I
yeah.
think we need to talk about the buying cycle of your
Yeah.
customers more and understand how they function. So yeah,
Yeah.
fully agree.
Everything that we preach at Flowla now is buyer centric, and we're just gonna launch our new ebook around what do your buyers want. That's what we call, and we try to shed a bit of light to it. Okay, that was a great conversation, Javi. Coming to the end of it, I'm gonna ask two, three rapid fire questions, and you can tell
Let's
me
go.
you whatever you want to answer or not. Okay, so great. So again, all this time of building and scaling global organizations, etc., etc. Three questions. One, what do you think is one common thread that is key to revenue growth?
A good product.
No brainer. Okay. Question two, expanding market share. What are some tactics that worked for you in the past?
Good one. Good one. If I have to be fair, I would say understanding your ICP very well, being narrowing your focus.
Excellent. And finally, and number three is going to be a longer one, building world-class go-to-market motions for high-growth companies. Tell me, tell me one tool or one aid or support that you couldn't do it without.
I think the unsung heroes of most go-to-market organizations is revenue operations,
Yes.
and I think that without a good revenue operations teams, you cannot scale, you cannot track, you cannot correct, and you cannot grow.
Yeah, I admit it was a leading question. I wanted that answer. So, because
Unpredictable.
sometimes, unfortunately, RevOps sometimes is seen as a bit of an underdog, as a roadblocker, and I don't always get it. What was the best thing that RevOps did for you in your career?
Oh man, I actually don't know where to start. I couldn't do anything without RevOps. Not today, not back in the day. I think that building a framework that enables your organization or yourself to succeed, it's very important. So that definition of success, almost that playbook of how to win, it's something that I cannot function without.
Yeah, yeah. And I think RevOps, if you're a Series A, it can be just that one super smart person who gets strategy and sales and marketing, although they're not called RevOps. But at what stage is it A, B, C, whatever it is, when you're like, without a RevOps, I won't do?
So I think at the time where you need to start scaling, at the moment where your sales process stops being founder-led sales,
Mm-hmm.
and you start adding external people that come
Mm-hmm.
with less context, with less knowledge, then is when you have a need to build something that can scale and can be replicable. So as soon as you move from a founder-led sales motion to a more professional sales motion, then you need someone to help you build for the future.
I agree. And final question of the whole show is, let's finish on a good note. I know that a lot of people are struggling, pipelines, standing out is impossible, this, that, but you seem to be still, doing fine, at least from the outside. And is there hope for salespeople? And where do you see the hope in the sales job or the revenue job going into the future? Where do you see what are you most excited about the future of this profession?
I'm very excited about the fact that a lot of the things that sellers hate are going to end up being managed by AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Updating the CRM, forecasting, moving stages in the systems, all those more mundane or admin tasks. I think we're going to, at some point, not need a human to do them. So we're going to be able to focus on usually the things that people enjoy the most, that is talking to other people. And is there hope? Absolutely, yes. Um, we started the show saying that there is a bad perception of sales, but I would say that without sellers, there is no company. Without revenue, there is no business. So yes, there is hope. I know 2023 has been hard for a lot of people, but I'm
Yeah.
sure 2024 is going to be better, and 2025 is going to be again a year where we start seeing attainment in the hopefully as a norm in the three-digit percentage.
Fantastic. I love that. I think everybody loves to hear that good note. Now, Javi, that's a wrap on this episode of Sales Therapy. Any closing remarks
Thank you.
before we go?
No, thank you. It's been great to see you. You also keep your hair. Alper, and you keep yourself young. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time I'm in London. And thank you, everyone that tuned in today.
Oh, fantastic. So our time is over, and I'm going to cut us on the clock, just like any good therapist. That's a wrap on this episode of Sales Therapy. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. And I thank Javi so much for being here. You inspire us to be better leaders, and keep doing what you do, and come back to the show. Thanks you.
Thank you. Will do. Bye bye.